So I'm still working on this. I've got the form a little bit more fleshed out. I'm still adding compressed charcoal here to the circle, right? The circular shape that I started with. And it's starting to get a little bit more volume, or the appearance, right, that's becoming a little bit more spherical, right, round like a ball. And that's kind of what I'm aiming for. And I have these interior circles as well. I might do something with those. Haven't decided yet. I wanted sort of a little extra bit to sort of show some of the activity of not only using additive and subtractive techniques, but how they also are used to produce different types of light or different ranges in value. So I'm still blending this, and you can see the ground that I apply is coming through in spots. That's okay. A drawing that's done primarily in value, we don't really see lines in those types of drawings. We see, right, where values end and new values begin, and those create our edges or subtle contours and the forms that we're trying to develop using charcoal. So I'll just keep doing this, and this is basically the process, right? Can't say that it's tremendously fast. You just sort of work through the drawing in a methodical way, at least I do, blending the charcoal in using an additive technique, working from the general to the particular, right? Roughing in the shape, and then making refinements along the way. So it starts to look like the thing that you're observing in your still life, right? So all the lights and darks correspond, the shapes correspond to what you're looking at and what you're trying to create in your picture plane. So I'll continue to do this, and then when we get back, I should be a little further along, and hopefully this will help give you a better idea as I move through this process, right, what you can do or perhaps develop with these additive and subtractive techniques for charcoal drawing. All right, see you in a bit. Okay, I'm still working on this. I have a little bit more filled in with my compressed charcoal to create a little bit more volume with this circular shape. So it's starting to get more ball-like, great, more spherical. So the next step, I have these inset circles, so I can show with some contrast, helping me out to define how this subtractive method would look when you apply it to a charcoal drawing. So much like these highlights and these little glinting edges that I created here in the apple, same process here, right? Just go in, take the eraser, right, to that charcoal. And this charcoal here is still mostly the vine charcoal ground that I applied, and this was the compressed charcoal I put over it. So we go in and, a little bit out, change the value of this interior shape. Of course, this is our subtractive technique. And this is a good time where I can use one of these smaller erasers, right, to do the details. I could do a larger eraser. This just makes it a little easier getting in these little spaces. So that's basically that. I've filled this out and come back in. All right, this is the back and forth process. So I went a little bit outside with my light, come back in, blend a little bit with my finger, right, carefully around that edge. All my lines in the end will slowly disappear, basically as each shape is created using value. So each value then will define edges and contours and shapes and forms. And that is basically how you use value to create volume and depth. So we give the illusion, right, of a sculptural form. So still using the subtractive technique here on this little inset, and I will use an additive technique here on the one just behind it, and I'll also be able to utilize sort of the contrast I've already established in this value range with this and then this. Sort of give a sense then of how we can play with the light by utilizing our subtractive and additive techniques. So there you go. I've got this one sort of lightened up, right? I've taken away the material, used my subtractive technique, and now I will use more compressed charcoal on this shape. Just to give a sense, right, of how these values can be created. Right, you notice while I'm doing this, I'm using a big piece of charcoal here. It's not too small, so when I get to where I need to probably use more finesse, right, that would be a good time to switch to a pencil. So I'm always working from the general, right, to the particular, more specific with each application, each layer in the drawing. Gently working the surface, working towards my goal to develop how my picture will look. So at this point, I'll probably switch, right? Take in my pencil, and of course, I'm not only laying down this charcoal pencil, but I'm also mixing with the charcoal I've already added. So they become blended together. So I'm also extending the charcoal I've already applied into this form with my pencil while I'm using the pencil to get the details, right? So it's working as a blending tool as well as a specific, precise drawing tool. And this is the process. Just keep adding and refining, and I might have to go back in again to clean up the details, right? So if I'm hitting this circular area, and you notice, right, how I'm sort of touching into this form, I can always take my eraser, another eraser, right, just clean that right up. So that's one thing that's nice about charcoal, right? You go in, you make your additive process when you're adding value, whether it's a darker value like this, or a very light value like this. It's always a back and forth. So I'm using a little additive technique and a little subtractive technique to create, right, the illusion in my form that there's volume and depth. So I'll continue to do this. I'll have to make some refinements in the shape, right, to enhance the quality of my illusion, right, in the picture plane. And as I do this, I'll keep working from the general, right, to the more specific. All right. So I'll continue to do this, and I'll see you in a bit. All right, in our next step, I'm going to show how to add vine charcoal to this very gently, and vine charcoal goes down much lighter, so I'm going to apply that first. And then I'm going to add compressed charcoal to add a little bit of volume to this shape to make it appear as though we're like a smaller ball standing out slightly from this larger volume that I drew behind it. Okay, so let's check that out. So the first thing we're going to do is lay just a little bit of value, some fine charcoal, some soft fine charcoal, and then blend it in. Okay, so we have that, and now I'm going to add a little bit of compressed charcoal, which is much darker. So I got to be gentle when I apply this. Okay, then blend this in. Right, so we're getting a little bit more volume out of that smaller ball. And then if you feel that perhaps you don't necessarily want to erase, but you want to pull some of the pigment off, just take your cloth, which you can blend and remove some of the extra pigment. And then as you do this and you sort of examine the quality of light that you're producing in this form, the shape that you're working on, you may decide then, okay, if I need to remove some more pigment, take an eraser, right, and gently apply the eraser, which is also blending the medium as well as subtracting the medium. So it's this back and forth process that we use to refine our objects and shapes, right, and details to create this idea of volume and depth. Always working from the general to the specific, or the general to the particular. So now this shape is getting a little bit more full. I've got this sort of crescent here on the bottom that's a little bit brighter than the rest of my sphere. So I should probably address this as well and try to even out the consistency of how the value is moving across the surface to add more of a concept visually that it is a volume sitting in space. So that's how you do that. And on my next demonstration, I'm going to fill this one in with an additive technique and just do some quick reductive work with compressed charcoal. And this one, I will lay in a wash, do reductive work, and then add charcoal into it. All right, let's check that out.